I think your daughter may have been drugged. When I, female, was in the 7th grade, 12 years old, I would experience nausea, vomiting, and extreme sleepiness after spending the night at the house of this particular friend. Let's call her Erin. This friend, also female, lived with her parents and her brother, who was 5 years older than us. After about 5 to 6 times experiencing these symptoms, my mom apparently noticed a pattern and sat me down to ask if I was drinking alcohol at Erin's. I remember laughing at that question because I had never even tasted alcohol at that point in my life. But my mom's question was super serious. I told her no, and I thought that Erin's multitude of rodent pets made me feel ill. This sounded suspicious to my mom, so she didn't let me spend the night at Erin's house anymore. But I was still allowed to spend the night at my other friends' houses. One night I was with a group of friends and we had movie night at Erin's house, then went to spend the night at my friend Sarah's house, where I had slept over many times without any problems. The next morning, I came home sick, nausea, vomiting, extreme sleepiness, and my mom took me to the doctor to get checked out. She told the doctor that she believed me when I said that I didn't drink alcohol, but given my hangover symptoms, apparently the doctor was incredulous and ran a blood alcohol test on me, which came back at 0, surprise, surprise. He said that they could test my blood for GHB/Rohypnol, but if I ingested the substance, it would no longer be detectable in the blood. Given the circumstances, he informed my mother that I was likely drugged at Erin's house, since that is the only commonality preceding my symptoms. There wasn't enough evidence to show who drugged me and or press any charges, so my mom just banned me from Erin's house. I stopped going to Erin's house completely, and I have not experienced these symptoms since. After about 2 months of not going to Erin's house, her older brother messaged me on FB and asked why I never came around anymore. He told me that he recorded some things on his DVR that I would like, so I should come over to watch them. I didn't know what to say, so I deleted FB. I never told my parents about that message, but in hindsight, Erin's older brother was likely preying on me. Sarah 1833. Not something that's serious though. Not blaming up at all. I mean this in general, as things like this happen a lot, sadly. I could have been doing it to other girls, young girls at that. And telling a parent could save countless innocent kids from losing said innocence, and much, much more. As you know damn well, a decent parent would call the police with all the evidence. Some things absolutely should be shared. Child/teen endangerment knowledge is never a right thing to keep silent about. Edit. I reread your post and I took it a different way. Hopefully my reply above will help someone else. I'm 100% positive you didn't mean your reply like how I took it. I read it as they shouldn't have to tell secrets even like this one. My bad. I'm sorry. Sad face. Still treeing buttered. Honestly, yes, he could have already assaulted her in the many times she visited and became ill afterward. But it is equally possible that he may have not have done so yet because he was awaiting the perfect opportunity, and then was thwarted when she abruptly stopped coming over. He may have felt like he had plenty of time because she was so often a guest. He also could have been experimenting with the dosage with her, especially if this was his first time using/even manufacturing the drug. In any event, the phone call to her was highly suspicious, definitely trying to lure her back, so very incriminating info. Unfortunately, from what we know about these kinds of perpetrators, he either continued to do this with others, or escalated to something much, much worse. How frightening. I'm so glad you are safe now, Opie. Thanks for posting. Definitely a great reminder that everyone needs to watch their children and their friends closely, no matter what their age. Slola96. I'm so sorry, and I really hate to say this, and I pray THJS isn't true, but if you were drugged by her brother, it's possible he did something to you that you don't remember, and my first thought when you said he had recorded something on the DVR you'd like was that he'd recorded something he did to you. I don't know how you'd check or find out, so I hate to mention it, and I pray I'm wrong. Burkena76. You should definitely drop his name and age, your age at the time, everything to the police. You could help solve another crime. A bunch of departments have anonymous lines to call. This guy probably didn't only do it to you, and if he was targeting you at 12, he might still be after the same age group. Jack Law. You are not responsible for policing this potential abuser. Please don't feel you have to go to anybody about it. That shit is good if you're aware of what happened to you and have dealt with it. It is never the child victim or any victim's place to out any potential pedophile, sexual abuser, ever, unless they have already been counseled for the events. Don't let anybody bully you into doing anything unless you're emotionally ready and have an amazing support network. Given that a doctor agreed with your parent that something was wrong, they can both act on your behalf. Miss Josie XO. Sick, twisted perv. He's going to end up raping someone. Come college, he will be slipping tons of girls GHB, and the next morning they won't remember what happened, and when he gets accused he will say she just didn't want to admit that she's a slut and had to do the walk of shame back to her car or place. He's going to get away with it one too many times. But there will be one girl that stands up to him, and he will finally end up in prison and become someone's bitch. Her deathly ways. You, fearful face. That F*% and ing child molesting creed. God, you poor thing. I'm so glad your mom was on point. I mean, it's shocking to read it, knowing you were just a sweet little girl thinking you are gonna have a fun sleepover. Not that you were in jeopardy. BKHGH. EU is right. You need to assume his possession of a recording might contain embarrassing pictures/video of you and still be in existence. You need to take some steps to protect yourself. 1. Print out this entire Reddit discussion record and initial and date each page. Put it all in an envelope and mail it to yourself. When it arrives, make sure the envelope is still sealed and has a legible postmark. Don't open it. Just put it away for safekeeping. This will establish the first or earliest date you disclosed your suspicions to neutral parties. Also, if your suspected molester is monitoring this Reddit, and why not? Seeing this recommendation might warn him off further action. 2. If you or your family can afford it, seek advice from a social worker and a criminal attorney. Both can fill in the blanks of any dose or don't to follow to protect yourself from now on. There are documentation you can prepare that protect you without endangering liability or due process. Of particular significance is that you suspect something happened to you as a child. The law is highly protective of children, and the reach is long and persistent and severe. So securing properly validated statements from those who remember and were primary instrumental in observing and reacting to your concerns when you were a child is important. As many as possible. Accusing someone of child molestation is not like Me Too. It is a much worse charge. 3. Start your own journal today, but start your entries clearly writing them as reactions from your youth until you catch up to today. Just include things that relate to your suspicions of being molested, but try to include as many as you, your mother, your friends recall. They do not have to be in order, but should be separately dated and distinguished from one another. If in paper, sign and date. If online, make and keep historical file versions. 4. Decide what you want to do. Now that you are mature and can see the possibility you were a victim of a crime, what are you going to do about it? This gets into decisions you alone must make. You may have been a victim. This young man may have been a child molester. He may still be one, or he may be innocent. Doing something with the materials listed above may prod the state to investigate and make an accusation and arrest for probable cause and indictment and trial. But trials do not always end with guilty verdicts, or the state process may fail at one of the earlier steps, and then you will be left hanging with doubts untried and his innocence neither confirmed nor denied. 5. Your heart, your conscience, and those in your life whom you love and respect are the ones to sound out for advice. I am none of those, but I am retired Ellie. My advice would be do #S1 to 3 and leave number 4 wait and see. If he comes after you, such as a video to a kiddie porn website, then crush him. If he runs afoul of the law without your involvement, then seek advice and counsel as above and decide whether to stand and deliver as a victim by accusing him of child molestation. With luck and hope, and knowing your family and others have your back, you will sail off now into a long life free forever from this trouble. Or at least armed and dangerous if it finds you. Good luck, young traveler. Deleted user. I feel like every other post on Reddit is from someone sexually abused as a child. They were either too terrified to say something, either they spoke up and no one believed them, either everybody knew and didn't do shit, but enabled and covered for the precious family pedophile. I had absolutely no idea pedophilia and sexual abuse and molestation were so rampant until I discovered Reddit. With all the creeps, pedophiles, rapists and rape apologists, pedophile supportive, pedophile friendly bullshit flying around, you'll go ahead send your children to sleep in other people's houses. WDF. I've lived in several countries in Europe. Sleepovers are unheard of. Not because we have no pedophiles, but because we do. You need to watch out for random people on the streets, teachers, priests, trainers, coaches, doctors, and babysitters, family members for molesting your children. But on top of everything, you send your children to strangers, so they can rape them in the comfort of their own home. This sleepover idiocy is baffling to me. Here's the thing. I went to many sleepovers growing up with friends. I had nothing happen but fun at any of them. I was safer there than at home, where my father started raping me at 6 years old. It's usually a family member or close family friend, because they have ample opportunity and can manipulate the victim into not telling. If anyone else had touched me, I would have told immediately. But my father told me he'd go to jail and never see me again, and I was his whole world and he'd kill himself, so I didn't tell anyone until long after it stopped, and I had been away from him for a few years. Basically, you can't trust anyone but yourself. I am literally going to have children on my own with a sperm donor from a bank, so I am the only person I have to legally let my child see. I'll never be forced to send them off with an abuser or have to expose them to that possibility. I am happy to be a single mother. He didn't get locked up. It stopped when I was 11. I didn't tell until I was 16, at which point I knew there'd be no evidence, and I said I didn't want to pursue charges. I just wanted to stay away from him. He died when I was 20 in 2008. He had ALS. He did suffer. He worked in hospice for a while around the time my parents got married, and he said he couldn't think of a worse way to go than ALS or Huntington's disease. So he literally died the worst way he could think of. Woman shrugging. Brynhildra. Sleepovers were great for me. All of my friends' parents were a second set of parents to me, and it was better to be at their house than at home because the pedophile in my life was a family friend who knew my mom's work schedule and when I would be home alone. Being at a friend's during the weekend meant I could escape that stalking and fear while also spending time with very positive adult role models, and they're the only reason I don't view men as worthless as fathers/pedophiles. Also, it was actually my friend's parents that convinced my mom to let me stay over because they were worried by me staying home alone while she worked 12-hour shifts. There is no one correct solution. Knowing the people in your kid's life is an important step in vetting for sleepovers, though foregoing sleepovers may be better too. One thing I would do if I ever have kids is to talk to them about potential predatory behavior and instill in them the confidence to tell me when they're very young. Slutforgerous. That's an unfortunate truth. It's one of those things that is considered part of growing up. TV and movies always show girls having sleepovers/slumber parties. I suppose the best thing a parent can do outside of forbidding it and having to deal with the misery and resentment from a kid who is feeling left out of their peer group is to take the time to really get to know the families of the other children. Include house rules and who lives there. My dad almost never let me go to friends' houses, and when I had to call him to bring my asthma inhaler, I got a pin light to the pupils while he was there. Guess whose parent is in law enforcement and doesn't trust his 11-year-old? At the time, I was perfectly behaved out of fear of him. Meanwhile, I could leave my mom's for days, and unless the cops brought me home, she wouldn't give a damn. I was drinking, smoking, occasionally getting in fights, messing around with guys who were several years older than me, and hanging out with gang members who were carrying drugs and loaded guns. I also once got the bright idea to walk across a frozen pond and nearly drowned. I don't even remember if she found out about that. It all came down to how much they actually paid attention and cared to notice what I was up to and who I was hanging out with. There has to be a happy medium between isolating your kid and making them a social pariah and letting them roam completely unsupervised. Mrs. Chapa. Now the time to find your voice. If he did this to you, he is also doing it to other girls, and no telling how far he will go or what all he's capable of. As time goes on and no one holds him accountable, he will get more abusive in his wrongdoings. And any girl, even his sister, is at risk for something awful happening to them. You did nothing wrong. Your mom will understand that. But hopefully she will go with you to the police and make a statement against this young man. You have lots of evidence against him, and if you act now, the police can probably catch him with the proof they'll need to arrest and convict him and put a stop to any other girls being drugged and who knows what all done to them. Besides, you may want to find out what all he did to you while you were drugged, because there could be other risk factors here, and your parents definitely need to know about this. You'll be helping yourself by facing what the truth is that happened to you and so many others that he has or will potentially have as his victims. Staying quiet because you're embarrassed or scared will cause you regret in so many levels down the road. I hope you find the courage to do the right thing soon before he does this to someone else or gets rid of any evidence the police could use to stop him for good. Deleted user. If I were in your situation and wondered if anything could be done, I would tell this exact story to a police officer and ask what could be done. Of course, only do this if you want to and you're ready to. I was sexually abused as a child. I didn't tell anyone until I was 16, and I refused to press charges at that point because I knew physical evidence would be gone, and I didn't want to face him in court and have him call me a liar or blame my mother somehow. It was my father, and he was a shithead. He died when I was 20. I am now 32, and I only now feel like I could handle that. Obviously, it isn't an option at all now, but fate took care of it, giving him ALS and killing him within 6 months at 54. My point is that being prepared should also take into account that he may deny everything. Your character may be called into question, like calling you a liar, pointing blame back at your parents, etc. It can be rough, and it may result in no charges or a nasty trial and then acquittal. None of that should scare you off from it. I just want you to be prepared if you pursue it. He likely didn't stop. Is it too late to send him a message saying, "Yeah, I always got sick at your house and my mom had me tested after the last time and the doctor determined I was being drugged. So, if anyone at your house is drugging anyway, I suggest they stop because there's a record of it and people are checking?" Face with tears of joy. Willie the Dank Me. That sounds terrifying, but I'm glad your mom set you down and talked. That's what good parents do. And Aaron's older brother sounds quite creepy. Were you ever told what kind of drug they found in your system? I'm just curious. There are different ways a drug can be transmitted to someone, so may have been food or something happened while you slept. Also, I saw that this was posted like a week and a half ago, but it was in top posts, so I saw it okay, and so if you think it's weird you got a comment 11 days after posting this, it's just because it's a top post smiling face with sunglasses. Funyuns are us. I'm glad you're okay. No offense intended, and I realize this is a very old thread. But where was Aaron all the time something may have happened? Was just letting her brother drug you and carry you off every time you were there? Even the movie Only Night? Where were her parents during all of these sleepovers? Could it have been Aaron herself up to no good and the brother was going to reveal that to you? There is also the possibility nothing ever happened and he was laying the groundwork. And that FB message might have been part of his plan to get you there alone with him only and then attempt to act on any diabolical plans he may have had. Please consider what others have stated and let the police know even this far after the fact. There could be unsolved crimes out there that your information might help tie pieces together. Have you ever Googled the brother's name to see if he was ever arrested? Or the parents? Or Aaron's? Also, most if not all states have public sexual offender/predator lists. Consider searching for all of them there too. And not just where you lived during that time frame, but also wherever they are now if you know or could find out. Sorry to ramble. I hope everything is going well in your world. DA0909. Realize I'm a few years late and seems like Opie is no longer very active, but giving this a shot anyway. First off, I am so sorry this happened to you. I can't imagine how you process and make sense of something like this, even if it happened many years ago. I see comments are split on whether or not you should come forward with your story. I agree with folks who say that, as the victim, you don't have any responsibility to come forward. Healing from whatever trauma this may have caused you should come first. However, if you find that you are strong enough, I would urge you to talk to the proper authorities. The perpetrator may still be at large and or there may be other victims out there, with potentially more severe outcomes than yours, looking for answers. Specifically, when I started reading your story, I thought you were one of Vahey's victims. TLDR, the most prolific, documented, pedophile ever had a very similar MO to what you described. He was a teacher at international schools and took advantage of his children's friends during sleepovers and of his own students during school trips. I grew up as an expat in the same regions he was in. While I never attended one of his schools, it's a small community and people move around a lot. So I know several people who were his students. One of my friends even remembers the Oreo game, but wasn't in the travel club, so who knows? Like Opie, terrifying to have no idea what might have happened. P.S. Am I the only one that's not ruling out the father here? Yes, that was a creepy FB interaction in that context, but it could be coincidental. While it's weird given the age difference, a teenager having a crush on his sister's friend is decently common. I guess I also like to think this is too sinister and involved for a 17 years old, but maybe I'm being naive/biased by the Vahey narrative.